work here as the ASL Program Coordinator at the University of Vermont, and I also teach American Sign Language, Deaf Culture, and Deaf Women's History classes. The point of the classes would be that deaf people are not disabled. Deaf people are part of a linguistic minority.
There's just a difference in language, so when you talk to somebody who's from Africa, there's going to be an English-African language barrier. For us, it's more of a hearing language barrier.
I do not think of being deaf as a disability. I think that the word disability largely fluctuates.
It's just a different way of living. I do have some differences.
For example, I cannot see as well as most sighted people can, but I'm not considered disabled.
I can't hear, but you guys can't sense. So there's no difference between you and me. So I don't really consider it a disability, but just I just live life simply a little bit different than you.
It all depends on what society defines as an ability and what the opposite of that is.
I think students learn why that is the case, why deaf people are a linguistic minority. They learn about deaf culture, they learn about deaf etiquette, they learn about history, the history of deaf people and of the deaf community.
Autism is comparable to racism or sexism. It's one of the isms. It's prejudiced when it comes to hearing or not hearing.
So an autist can be both a deaf person or a hearing person. There's two different types of autism. One is called passive autism, and the other is active autism. Passive autism is somebody who does not know, who makes an innocent mistake, and once educated, learns from that mistake. Active autism is somebody who does things that are oppressive to deaf people, even if they've been educated.
When it comes to signs of autism at UVM, the problem is mostly lack of awareness. There are people who see deafness as a disability, and that's certainly part of it.
And here's an example. I had a teacher who oppressed me. He's autist. He believed that I did not type my paper because I am deaf. And how a deaf person can oppress a deaf person. You might have a deaf individual who is very skilled in reading and writing English, and you might have another deaf person who is not as skilled. And they may look at that deaf person in an oppressive fashion.
It's hard for me to keep up with my classmates because I miss those little things in class, and it's also tiring because I cannot take a break in class and not have you guys put your heads down and just be like, okay, just, and you'll keep listening, but I can't do that. I'm part of the Access program at UVM, and Access is really for anyone with disabilities. They specifically have a deaf coordinator within the office, and she helps me provide me with, in terms of access to classes, so I need an interpreter and note taker.
There are occasions when I request an interpreter and none is available, and then they have to provide another accommodation. But it's one of the reasons why I love working here, because I know that they will provide me with an interpreter without question.
UVM is very well resourceful in being able to accommodate everyone's needs. I haven't heard of anyone ever complaining about not being able to get any special access.
One of my friends is hard of hearing, and sometimes she uses an interpreter. But in small groups, she feels like sometimes it's a little too obvious. She doesn't want to be the only one using the interpreter. Most of the deaf community doesn't identify with the term disabled. So sometimes when I go into an event and they say, oh, for disability services, call this, when they really mean if you need a sign language interpreter. I mean, sometimes they've been really good and they've been getting more informed. And I think it's also our job as ASL students and as the deaf community to tell people that that's not really what's going on with us.
People can be afraid to meet a deaf person, even if they've taken an ASL 1 class.
There are some people who are taken aback by it and actually don't talk to me because they don't know how to talk to me. If there's something different with you, then they learn how to adapt to it. And most often people ask me oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that. How can I help you better? But usually I've become very assertive myself, so I just step right up and be listen, I'm hard of hearing. Just make sure you face me when you talk, so I can read your lips.
But really the main reason I teach the deaf culture class is because I want students to become allies of the deaf community. The deaf community struggles with issues of deaf education and hearing administrators who know nothing about the deaf community, nothing about deaf culture, making decisions for deaf children that are impacting our education in a negative way. Oftentimes those hearing educators want to hire hearing teachers, not deaf teachers, so we really need the hearing community to become our allies and support us as a deaf community. You can liken this to the gay, lesbian, and queer community. I am not queer, but I am an ally. I am an ally of that community. I do not make decisions for them, but whatever they're fighting for, I provide support. The deaf community is very, very welcoming to anyone who makes an effort.
but the deaf community in Burlington and the Burlington area is much bigger than here at UVM, and generally they get pretty involved.
Well, there's tons of community events that also we try to bring community members here.
Everyone is invited to Donnie's. We all go get pizza every Thursday night and just eat and sign. We also have Deaf Awareness Week in fall semester, and that is 1 week whirlwind of all sorts of events.
They have presentations, they have specific speakers.
We've got like a game night and movie night.
So there's a group of ASL films, so we have those being demonstrated like at Jeffers or something for one night. Those actually turned out to be pretty cool because it's like a total silent film and everyone else, the whole thing is sign language. The biggest one is ASL Skit Night, which is a huge hit on campus. It happens downstairs in Brennan's and everyone loves it. There's even people who go there for dinner and have no idea what's happening, like right behind them. So that's like our best like recruitment night.
The ASL Club is new. I am its second president. It is just finishing up its first year.
There's like the ASL program, which is actually a currently expanding program, so it's actually getting larger. I mean, this year, for example, we had around 8 ASL 1 classes alone. So that's a pretty expanding program. They have less ASL classes being provided next year, but hopefully that won't cut down the ASL program in general. I really encourage everyone to get involved in learning ASL because it's definitely becoming a more wide-known language.
I really feel the need to have as many students meet the deaf community and become involved as possible, and it looks like it's going that way. So
We welcome anyone into our community who makes an effort. It doesn't matter if you know sign language or not, if you're willing to write back and forth or gesture or do what you gotta do, hi, this is my name, whatever you know is great.
Just because we can't hear doesn't mean that we aren't in tune of what's going on around us. We're very visual. So we are in tune, like we can tell what somebody's emotion is before other people even recognize it. Because you guys can hear it in the tone of the voice, we can see it in facial expression. It's mainly being patient.
there is a way to communicate, even if you don't know sign language, even if they don't speak. There's always, some people write, some people gesture. There's always a way to get over it.